So let's first start off with a compare and contrast between Spider-Man and spiders. First, they both have the ability to climb. In the movie Spider-Man, they have a close-up scene of Peter Parker's fingers that have small little hairs, which give him the ability to climb anything. This is very similar to a spider's ability. Unfortunately, there is no similar scene in the movie Amazing Spider-Man, but nonetheless, we do know that he can climb just like a spider. A spider's foot is covered with small little hairs called setae, and each setae branches out to even smaller hairs called setioles. Because of these hairs, scientists have found that the grip of a spider is so strong that it can hold up to 170 times its own body weight before losing its grip. So these small hairs can be an attribute of Spider-Man's strength. But what about his ability to jump far distances? Well, spiders have this internal muscle that blasts fluids from the body into its legs. It's so powerful that the spider can jump about 50 times its own length. So this can also be a possibility of how he can cover far distances. Next is Spider-Man's spidey senses. As depicted in the comics, he is able to sense danger from a nagging feeling in his brain. But how does a spider sense danger? Well, of course its eyes. Because of its multiple eyes, it is able to see wider vicinity than humans. Also, the many hairs on its body is highly sensitive, giving it the ability to feel small vibrations of movement. Finally, Spider-Man's web. In The Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker creates a device that shoots out spider web fluid. It solidifies kind of like a nylon once it contacts air. A spider's web is made of what we call spider silk. This silk is produced by the glands from the arachnid's posterior. The silk is made of proteins and water, and its strength is comparable to a high-grade alloy steel. But enough with their abilities. Let's talk about how spider bites can really affect people.
There are different ways of how spider bites affect people. Girls, boys, people of all ages can get them. For instance, it's a pain that can last up to 2 weeks, yet it improves a person's self-esteem and changes their appearance. That is, if we were talking about spider bite piercings. Get it? Spider bite piercings? Yeah, okay. Let's just get back to Peter Parker and the Amazing Spider-Man. To begin with, spiders don't often bite humans. The only time they do is when they feel threatened. All spiders are venomous, but not all of them are poisonous. The most common symptoms from spider bites are swelling, itching, redness, and pain. As you can see on the picture on the right, there's also numbness, tingling, discoloration, and if you have an allergic reaction, you can experience hives, shortness of breath, wheezing, and weakness. If this ever happens, make sure to call 911. On the next slide, I've listed unordinary symptoms from spider's venom. These include unwanted erections, dead and black skin tissue, unusual rashes, dark urine, and heavy sweat. The spider that causes unwanted erections is the Brazilian wandering spider. These are mostly found in South America. It is one of the Earth's most venomous spiders, and its bite can be lethal, but unlikely to happen because of its anti-venom. Its bite causes human males to experience long, painful erections. The venom causes the levels of nitric oxide to increase, which then increases the blood flow. The spider that causes dead and black skin tissue, unusual rashes, and dark urine is the brown recluse spider. This is the only North American spider whose bite has been proven to kill human tissue. When spider venom kills human tissue, this is known as necrotic arachnidism. Although this rarely happens, the tissue turns black as the skin cells die. These spiders also cause unusual rashes that are able to spread all over your body. Lastly, these spiders cause blood disorders to the ones they bite. The venom from the species causes hemolysis, which is the red blood cells burst and release their contents into plasma. Anemia is the result and can last up to 4 to 7 days. Also, the venom can lead to small injury to kidneys and yellowing of the skin. Hemoglobin breaks down and its waste product is built up in the blood and excreted through dark urine. Lastly, heavy sweat is caused by the black widow spider. Because of its venom, it affects the nervous system and causes excessive sweating. The venom blocks nerve cell signals to the muscles, which causes them to contract repeatedly. This causes pain and stress to the human body. Other symptoms from this venom include high blood pressure, severe facial spasms, and restlessness. On the next slide, you can see the 3 different types of spiders that causes these unusual, weird symptoms. The Brazilian wandering spider, the brown recluse spider, and the black widow spider. So simply just watch out for these 8-legged creatures.
Peter Parker couldn't be Spider-Man without ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation consists of the more dangerous rays on the electromagnetic spectrum. This radiation is dangerous in that it can damage DNA and any living tissue in the human body. It has very high energy levels, enough that it can form ions from molecules. It can damage the DNA within cells, which can change the DNA, especially in reproductive cells, which in turn can then cause hereditary genetic changes if altered. It can also cause cells to become cancerous, stop working, or die. The health effects of ionizing radiation on a person can vary depending on a variety of factors. These effects can range from long-term effects like cancer to more immediate effects like burns or radiation sickness. Some effects may not appear for years or even until later generations are born. In the case of our friend Peter Parker, we know that his powers, which came from his irradiated DNA, appeared only a few hours after his initial exposure. We don't know how much radiation he was exposed to or what the effects might be later on in his life, but we wish him the best of luck. In the 2012 movie, the only side effect they showed Peter having after the bite was fatigue, which is fairly common. Some people are affected more by radiation injury than others. This is true in sunburns, which are a mild form of radiation injury. Put simply, you're likelier to get cancer from ionizing radiation than superpowers. Internal exposure refers to radiation that affects the insides of a body, such as organs, the bloodstream, and the like. This can happen, for example, through swallowing airborne alpha particles accidentally. In Peter's case, the spider's bite through the back of his neck exposed him internally. Radioactive material only goes where it normally would go in the body. Radioactive calcium, for example, would go to the bones, where calcium is used by the body. This might explain why the radioactive material from the spider's venom was able to stick around in his body, because otherwise, if the radioactive material doesn't have any use in the body, then the body gets rid of it and flushes it out. When it comes to mutation, this is where the screenwriter's creative license comes into play. Yes, the venom could be considered a mutagen, as it did cause permanent mutations in Peter's genetic material. But even considering this, those mutations all being mostly positive and not lethal or disfiguring in any way isn't very likely, as such mutations are random and often unpredictable. The explanation given in the 2012 and 2014 Spidey movies is that cross-species genetics, like meshing zebrafish DNA with human DNA to fix Parkinson's, are responsible for Peter's powers, his survival, and the survival of those powers within his body. Richard Parker, his dad, altered the spider's DNA with his own so that the only way that their venom could be helpful and not harmful to a human was for that human to have his DNA. That means that only Richard himself and Peter, his biological son, would be eligible. Without Richard's DNA, the spider's venom severely damages, deforms, and nearly kills the recipient's DNA, like what happened in the 2014 movie to a certain verdant villain. So basically, if you're not Peter Parker, there's no way that you'd survive that bite with cool powers to boot.
Now, after comparing and contrasting Spider-Man to spiders, discussing symptoms of spider bites, and actual reactions to ionic radiation, is Spider-Man possible? Short answer is no. Long answer is maybe a 0.000001% chance, if even that. There are too many variables of how radiation could mutate DNA, since it's random and unpredictable, so it will most likely not mutate in the same way, which, to get the powers, you need the same mutation everywhere. Then there's the problem that to affect every muscle, you'd have to be bit in every muscle. If you intend to get the full package, including spidey senses, that spider will have to bite your brain. Even after going through this miserable process, the spider has to use the exact amount of radiation and venom each time. And don't forget, radiation can turn off and on at the flip of a switch, so it could stop at the worst possible moment. While the movie got spider strength and ability pretty accurately, gaining these powers is not really achievable. So don't go looking for spider bites, because you're more likely to get dead skin tissue than superpowers.